Hello, everybody. Welcome and thanks for joining me. I appreciate you tuning in and watching this podcast. I just want to say thanks again for taking the time out of your schedule. I know that everyone's busy, and so appreciate you being here. Let me introduce myself. My name is Tim Sparks, and I am the author of a brand new book coming out, hopefully slated to come out sometime before Christmas. But the book is entitled Your Journey to Becoming a Great Change Leader, Navigating the Road to Exceptional Leadership. I'm very excited about this book. This is my first book, and so very excited about getting that out and seeing it actually in print. Very excited about that. Um, the book is designed to really help you as a leader advance your career as a great change leader. And that's one of the terms that I use a lot in my book, great change leader. And I'll go into more about that here in a little bit. So, really, whether you're already in a position of leadership where you work, or maybe it's you're maybe you're just an individual contributor looking for a way to find a niche, a way to get yourself known and get yourself moving up the corporate ladder kind of thing. This book can be a great help for that. It has always been my desire, both as an HR professional for the past 20 years or so, 19 years. And before that, as a school teacher and a school principal, it's always been my goal to help other people achieve their greatest potential. And so that's really the whole idea behind this book, is to help you find that niche, find that path that you can take to becoming a great change leader. Um, Again, whether you're a leader in your organization now, or you're just getting started, this can be a great help for you. Maybe you own your own business. Maybe you're just getting started as a startup, and it doesn't really matter if you have 5 employees or 5,000 employees. The concepts that you learn in this book can really be a help to you. And so I hope you pick up the book, and these. This is the first installment in the series of discussions that we're going to have, and they're really going to be more conversational. I noticed Joy already posted a note in there. So, hi Joy, nice to meet you. I think we're connected on Facebook as well, but it's great to have you with us. Along the way, if you want to post comments, if you want to ask questions, feel free to do that. I'll be glad to try and answer anything you have. Um, so one of the things about change leadership and becoming a great change leader is that organizations already know that they have to change. It's not a nice to have. It's not a gee, wouldn't it be nice if we could, be an agile organization that can change? But it's really a necessity. It's something that has to be done, and organizations already know that they have to change in order to remain competitive in the market that they're in. The bad thing is, most organizations don't do a very good job at it. They know they need to change. They just don't know really how to start or how to approach change. And so, becoming a change leader can really set you apart in your organization, or make you attractive to other organizations, because if you can lead people through change, and that's what organizations need. They know they need to change. They just don't necessarily know how, but they know that they need to. And if you can lead people through change, then that opens up many doors for you as a leader. Think about what that could mean to you and to your career. If you could be known in your organization, or in your field, in your industry, as a great change leader. So, why this topic and why now? This topic has been around for a while. As a matter of fact, change management really kind of became a buzz topic about 25 years ago in the mid 1990s. And everyone was talking about change management, and it was because, again, things were changing, and organizations knew that they had to change, but it was one of those things where nobody really knew how to approach it, and so change management became that hot topic among a lot of organizations to drive change in their industry or in their organization. And one of the things that has driven that change is technology. As you know, technology changes exponentially almost every day. The old saying is, when you buy a computer and take it home, as soon as you take it out of the box, it's already obsolete. And so technology changes so quickly that it drives the pace of change in business at breakneck speeds. It really does. Think about the speed of business today. Business just operates so quickly and changes so drastically, so quickly, that organizations have to be agile. They have to be ready to change, change courses and switch on a dime kind of thing all the time. And so it's very important that organizations understand that it's technology that's driving some of that pace of change, and that pace can be maddening sometimes. And then when you think about it, the world is literally changing around us, isn't it? If you watch the news, if you watch social media, if you do a lot of, those different things, you know that the world is just gone crazy at this point. We're in the middle of this COVID-19 pandemic, and so much has changed just because of that. You have organizations that have been deemed non-essential businesses, whatever that means. And I'm not sure why the people, the powers that be, get to make those decisions, but that's the world we live in. So you have many organizations, many companies that have closed their doors during this pandemic. Some of them temporarily, some of them will never recover. Some of them will never reopen their doors. And so you have people that are out of work. You have people that are struggling to find daycares because the daycares are closed. You have all of these different changes in the environment in which we live because of the COVID-19 scare. And so some of the things that the COVID issue has created is things like working from home. So many of you maybe work from home. Many of you maybe have found the need to do business in a different way. You may not be able to get up and drive to work like you used to, but you sit at home on your computer, and of course you got kids, you've got dogs, you got cats, you got spouses, and there's so much going on there, and so many times people. When you thought about working from home, it became this romanticized thing, right? Man, I wish I could work from home. Wouldn't that be great if I could just stay home and work? And then when you actually did get to stay home or had to stay home because of COVID or whatever other reason, then the glamour kind of wore off real quick, didn't it? I've worked from home quite a bit in my career, and I know that when you work from home, you tend to end up working more hours than if you actually got up, got dressed, drove to work, and worked at an office somewhere. So it's very hard for a lot of folks to maintain that work-life balance between work and life, because there's no real line of separation there. You're working from home, you're sitting at your dining room table, you're sitting at you're sitting on the couch with your feet up, and there's no demarcation there of how to separate work and life. So when you're actually working, and the dog needs to go out, you get up and take the dog out, and then all of a sudden the lines are even blurred even more. And Mary, you're right. Mary said many leaders are struggling with having to manage virtually too. Even for those of us who do go to the office every day, and I work in an industry that was deemed an essential business, so I've never had to stop or change my routine during the pandemic. I still get up in the morning, still get dressed, still drive to work, and do all of that. But still, even sitting in the office, meetings have changed. We don't do face-to-face meetings anymore. We do Zoom meetings and we do Microsoft Team meetings. And so, while those tools are great, number one, sometimes technology fails us, right? Sometimes, we try to schedule a meeting and the internet goes down, or the Zoom platform isn't working, or we maybe it's a user error and we don't know how to navigate through those things as well as maybe we should. And so, we struggle with those tools, and it's just not the same as having a leadership team come together face to face and talk about issues, talk about challenges, talk about those things. It's a much different scenario when you're on a Zoom meeting, watching somebody, or maybe not even watching. Maybe it's just audio, so you can't tell if somebody on the call is, checking their email or doing other things. The whole process can be very muddled sometimes, and so the world again is changing around us, and we've got all this political unrest too, right? We've got protests and rioters in the street. We've got Antifa. We've got Black Lives Matter. We've got people boycotting this and boycotting that, and we've got an election year where we've got two very polarized segments of our country that are battling for who's going to win the White House, who's going to win, state Senate, and U.S. Senate, U.S. House of Representatives, all that. So there's a lot of political unrest going on too, and that really tends to make people. It tends to unnerve people. It tends to make people anxious, and so as change leaders, we have to be cognizant of the fact that a lot of times that unrest, that concern, that just fear sometimes makes its way into the workplace, right? And so we, as leaders, it's critical to understand that and to know that people are struggling at this point, and so we have to take those things into account. Another reason why this topic is so important right now is because 70% of all change initiatives fail. And it's interesting, like I said, change management became big back in the mid-1900s, about 1995. And so since that time, there's been a lot of studies and a lot of surveys done to gauge the success rate of change initiatives. And so let's stop there for a second and answer the question maybe some of you have: what in the world is a change initiative? And simply put, a change initiative is just a plan that organizations put into place to get from one way of doing things to another way of doing things. So think about the old way of doing things versus the new way of doing things, or the old state versus the new state. And a change initiative is that plan that gets an organization from point A to point B. Now, a change initiative can be very simple. It could be a matter of just rolling out a new software program to run the sales numbers or something like that. Or it could be extremely intricate and robust. And so depending on how robust it is, those change initiatives are sometimes can be very detailed. And so, like I said, starting in 1995 or so, studies and groups began studying the success rate of those change initiatives. And what they found was, 25 years ago, that those change initiatives failed 70% of the time. There's only a 30% success rate. And I don't know about you, but I'm not real comfortable with a 30% success rate. I prefer it to be much higher. So 70% of all change initiatives failed 25 years ago. Well, it may interest you to know that even though there's been literally thousands of books, thousands of articles, workshops, and training programs developed on change management procedures to help businesses do a better job at being successful at change. Studies today still show that the failure rate for change initiatives is still hovering right around 70%. So in 25 years, we haven't really moved the needle at all. And that begs the question, for me anyway, that begs the question, why? Why have we not been able to move that needle? Why have we not been able to figure out where we went wrong, correct the problem, and move on so that we could be more successful? And for me, the answer is the focus. The focus on where we put our emphasis. And again, that kind of brings me to the difference between change management and change leadership. Change management, like I said, became very popular back in the late or mid to late 1990s. It was that buzz topic that everybody was talking about. And so change management, to me, focuses on process. It focuses on the path that organizations take to get from that old state to the new state. Change leadership, on the other hand, is focusing on people. You see, in change management, you can have the greatest minds, the smartest people coming up with the best change plans, the best change initiatives possible. But if your people aren't on board, if they're not bought in, and you can't lead your people through those times of change, then there's the probability for failure is pretty high. So for me, it's all about focus. It's about focusing on people rather than process. For me, the change leader will almost be the difference, the differentiator between success and failure in any change initiative. The change leader is the one who has the ability to inspire and motivate people to go that extra mile, to explain why things are important, so that employees can get on board and be part of the success initiative. If you think about it, change happens in nature all the time, right? Things in nature, species change, environments change, and really you could think of change as kind of like an ecosystem. So an ecosystem is where everything depends on everything else in the ecosystem. So if you think of environmentally, the trees give off oxygen, and plants give off oxygen that the mammals can breathe, and the mammals become food for humans, and it's all kind of that circle of life kind of thing, right? And so change happens in nature all the time, but it seems like humans really are the only species that have to be led through change. And in nature, if you don't change, you become extinct, right? And it's the same with organizations and corporations. The organizations that refuse to change, and there's plenty of examples of organizations that have refused to change, and we could take a whole nother session to talk about that, and maybe we will. But organizations who don't change become extinct as well. And one of the other dangers too is that if we don't do change management or change leadership correctly, then something sets in with our people called change fatigue. Now, change fatigue happens when either the pace of change is just too fast, there's too much coming at you, it's like drinking from a fire hose, there's something new changing all the time, and people just, they didn't get a chance to breathe after the last change initiative before you announced, 3 more. And so change fatigue can set in just because of the pace of change. But change fatigue can also set in with employees because we just don't do change right. We don't do it very well. And so, kind of the fly by your seat of your pants methodology is a great way to lead to change fatigue. And when change fatigue sets in, employees become disengaged and they kind of lose trust and faith in the organization. They just don't want to do it anymore, and they're sometimes looking for that next job. So change fatigue can be very costly to an organization's bottom line. So let's kind of jump in, and by the way, this session is slated for 30 minutes, and I was kind of thinking maybe I could even scale that back a little bit. We're going to be doing this in 8 weeks, 8 different sessions, and I don't want to overwhelm folks, but you tell me if you're good to go or want to put the brakes on. But wanted to talk about the change leader model. So my change leader model, and there's plenty of change leader models out there. Everyone that talks or writes about this change management process has their own change leader model. And so mine is consisting of 4 different components. And those components, the first one is change readiness, and then change management, change communication, and then change sustainability. So when you think about those 4 things, the change leader model is kind of I want to say it's kind of like a roadmap in a way, and then in a way it's not. So it gives you some guiding principles of how to manage and lead through change, but keep in mind too that the change leader model is very fluid. It's not a linear path where you start at step 1, complete step 1, then you go to step 2, you complete step 2, and then move on to step 3, and so on. It's more of a fluid model, because all 4 of these components of the change leader model should really be initiated from the day 1 of announcing change or planning your change. So when you think of change readiness, change managing through change communication, all of that has to be considered in your change plan from day 1. Even change sustainability, and that's how you get change to stick. Because one of the dangers that we'll talk about later in another session is that change leadership or change sustainability, locking change in is very difficult, because you initiate the change, and if it's not done correctly and you don't have all these things in place, then if you fail to follow up and you fail to keep those lines of communications open, then what happens is you have what I call negative cultural drift, that's where as soon as things get hard, or as soon as things change, where you're not following up all the time with your people, then people start to drift back into what they're comfortable doing, right? They become they want to go back to what's familiar. And so it's hard to get change initiatives to be sustainable, to stick. And so even change sustainability has to be considered from the very beginning of your change initiative, because you want to put things into place from day 1 that are going to help you in that sustainability piece that will make it become part of your new culture, part of the new normal, even though I hate that term, by the way. You want to make sure that you're doing all these things together as a whole. You want to look at them holistically instead of as puzzle pieces to go from one step to another. Okay, so we'll talk about the first one briefly here. So we've got about 5 minutes left in our session, and the first one is change readiness. And this component is where you look at different things to determine whether or not you're actually ready to go into a change initiative. And there's 3 different pieces of this component. So the first one is, are you ready for change? Are you, as the leader, the person who's going to lead these people, your people, through this time of change, are you ready for change? I'm sure many of you fly, and if you want to put it in the chat, fine. But how many of you fly and have flown maybe often, maybe more than 2 or 3 times a year at least? Some of you are in an airplane maybe 2 or 3 times a week or a month. But when you fly, think about lessons learned from a flight attendant. When you fly, before you ever leave the ground, before you ever take off, what do? They go through their safety walkthrough to tell you how to react in case of different scenarios that might happen, right? And so one of the things they tell you is that in the unlikely event that we lose cabin pressure, the oxygen masks will fall from a compartment in the above your head. And what do they tell you to do? They tell you to put your own mask on first and then help others around you. And that is a critical piece of change readiness. You have to determine your own readiness for this change, because if you're not ready, that's going to spell disaster for the change initiative. So you have to determine whether you yourself as the leader are ready for change. Are you personally bought in? Maybe the change is something that you initiated yourself. Maybe this is a decision that you made for your organization, and that you're rolling out, that you're initiating this change for your organization. But maybe it wasn't. Maybe this came down from leadership above you, and maybe you're scratching your head wondering, I wonder if this is really a good idea. So you have to ask yourself, are you bought into this change? Because if you're not 100% bought in and sold and willing to jump into this 100%, then it's going to be a difficult ride for you, and especially for your employees. So you need to make sure that you're ready personally, and you're bought in personally for this change. Ask yourself, do you understand this change? Do you understand the reason for this change? Why is this initiative being rolled out, and why now? And are you prepared to handle the resistance from your employees? Because you will get some pushback from your employees. You're gonna find a whole range of different reactions from your employees on this change initiative. So, are you prepared to handle that resistance? So, when I teach this, or when I present this material in conferences and things like that, one of the things I always ask my audience is to fill in the blank. Okay, so I want you, if you're online, go ahead and put it in the comments section. And if you're watching this later, just fill in this blank. Change is blank. How would you fill in that blank? Change is blank. So if you're like most people, you're going to, and probably the most common things that I hear from conference participants is that change is frustrating, change is exciting, change is terrible, change is all these different things that people come up with, but the underlying factor in all of their answers generally tends to be that they're all emotions. Change is emotional, and change leaders must understand that change is emotional, because you can't just say to people, this is the way it's going to be, take it or leave it, suck it up, put your big boy pants on and get it with the program, because this is how we're moving forward. That is management from 25 years ago, 50 years ago, and that will not fly when you're going through times of change. And as we go through some of the things that we'll talk about in future sessions, you'll understand more and more why that people, you can't just lead, you can't manage people in that way. You can't just tell people this is the way it is, get with the program, or there's the door. So change is emotional, and great change leaders will understand that, and they will understand that people react differently too. Everybody reacts to things differently. Not everybody reacts the same. Sometimes people will react positively and be very excited about the change. Sometimes people will be very resistant and react very negatively. And so we need to tailor our leadership style so that we begin to understand that, and we can lead people knowing that we need to treat them as individuals and not as a group. So I see that we're at 30 minutes. I do want to be respectful of your time. I just want to say again, thank you very much for joining. We'll be back here next Monday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time to jump into session 2. So join me. I'd love to have you. And again, if you have any questions or comments, go ahead and put those in, and I will do my best to either answer those online or in the next session. So thanks again for being with me today, and look forward to seeing you next Monday. Have a great day.